hours. He was actually given CPR by our responding officer, which is required by our policy. And he also he was transported within minutes to Highland Hospital.
Every time y'all guys have a homicide, the body is always left out there for hours. I've seen that a gang of times.
What's the name of the medical people?
I can't read
A gang of times for hours for the coroner to come pick the body up.
Elapsed. I can't read that.
You said it's medical people on duty. What's the medical people name? Do we get their names? Or is that confidential too?
I don't have the exact time, but it was not within 4 hours. How many minutes elapsed between the CPR administered by the police at the scene and Alan Blueford's arrival at the hospital? He was given CPR immediately by our officers. I don't have the exact times, but I know our officers did provide medical treatment to Mr. Blueford.
OPD's corrupt.
Did Alan point gun at police?
No.
Yes.
No.
Why was the police so nervous that he shot himself? We're looking at that ourselves.
Lying in the church, man. God.
How does the first statement made by the policeman's spokeswoman, John Watson, turns out to be 100% false information that Alan was in a gun battle? I'm not sure if how that information came out. We know that a reporter, based on the information he spoke to as witnesses, did at some point say that Alan shot the officer. There's no evidence that that ever happened. We're pretty sure about that. Thank you.
So y'all lying about one thing, but not another thing. What's going on with that? Tell the truth about everything. Why y'all lying about one thing? What's the name of the office?
Has there ever been a police shooting that was not justified homicide?
Who were there?
Yes, there has.
When? Beverly?
Why has officers not been identified? When will we know? What about complaint history? What is officer status? So the officer, his name will be released at the appropriate time based on state law. I'm not allowed to discuss that at this point. What about the complaint history?
Messerly's name was in the paper
We're not in a position to disclose the officer's complaint history. The officer is out on administrative leave.
Is he in Tahoe like Messerly was?
Yeah.
Until Oakland erupted?
When will the public know about fingerprints, if any, found at the weapon that was recovered at the scene? That's information that we will share with the family later on as the investigation is concluded. Why was it considered necessary for a chase of Mr. Blueford? The officers were investigating what they thought was drug and weapons violations, and they had a reason to investigate that. My understanding, 2 officers were at the scene. One of them chased Blueford. Is it possible, as a standard police procedure, to pursue citizens suspected of committing crimes alone without having called for backup? The officer did what we trained him to do. He did call for backup, and the officer did arrive.
He did. He killed him. That's what you trained him to do.
Were any of your policies violated? We will be looking at that very closely, and we'll provide that information later on.
Jail Miguel Masso. Jail Miguel Masso.
Jail the killer cop.
I ain't never heard of OPD shoot a young white
Masso is the killer.
boy. They quickly shoot a young brown brother or a young black brother.
And we are here to answer questions from the community. It's very difficult to answer those questions if we're not being allowed to speak. There are people here that
Well, you know,
came
it's
here
hard for when the community's
to
not
ask
listening when
questions
you're
and they
really
want
hard.
answers. They are not getting the answers that they deserve because you're being very disrespectful.
Nobody trusts you. That's why. Nobody trusts you. No brother make you a thug in the street. Because that's what you is. A bunch of high gunmen. That's what you are.
How is it possible that the officers could not distinguish between a gun or drugs? We are looking at every aspect of this case. I don't have the answer for that.
here unprepared, huh?
Thought you had everything straight. Why you guys ain't got no answers to
This
these questions?
concludes our meeting. I want to thank you. I want to thank you for your cooperation. Thank you very much.
Oh my God, that was so fast.
Real proud of you right now. Oh, God, you're lying.
Excuse me. Can you tell me what we just saw going on in here?
For Alan Blueford, justice! 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 For Alan Blueford, justice!
Y'all the criminals. Kill the cop. Tell the killer cops. Kill the cops. Y'all the criminals. Y'all the real criminals. Y'all the real criminals. Y'all the real criminals. Y'all the murderers. Y'all walk away. Walk away. Walk away. You're not part of the people. Walk away. Straight up. Y'all the criminals, right?
You're doing enough.
She's a fucking corrupt. He's trying to fucking go and get the fuck out of here. You're not part of this city. Get out of here. Get out. You justice for Alan Blueford. Justice! For Alan! Justice! For Alan! Justice! Justice! For Alan Blueford! Justice! Justice! We want justice, Chief! I know you're gonna think about this tonight when you go to sleep. You're not white, Chief! You're not white, Chief! No matter how much you try, you're not white! Justice!
Oakland paid $38 million in lawsuits.
Why is there $156 million getting spent on police services and only $40,000 on schools? Come on, Steve. To pay your fucking ass and this motherfucker. Justice!
Criminals, man. Man, don't come out. For Alan Blueford.
No, I'm protecting her. Because you are not here to protect us. You are not here to protect us. So we're done. Get out of my face.
Why you grabbing him?
He didn't do anything.
Yeah, don't grab him. Why you grabbing him? Yeah, don't touch him.
For Alan Blueford! Justice! For Alan Blueford! For Alan Blueford! For Alan Blueford!
Whatever you want to do.
Let me tell you something, Sergeant. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something, Sergeant Principal. You are part of a corrupt police force that kills my people. Okay? And you cover up murders of my people. You are part of the problem. And I do not respect you. And if ever you touch me, there will be a
Police have
problem.
just showed up and they just pulled out their batons.
You're upset. Then you leave.
Y'all the criminals, man. We need independent investigation.
All you guys are killers!
Killers!
I'm not giving up the name. You guys are all I don't give a fuck about your cages. You guys are murderers. Correct.
Justice for Alan Blueford!
Justice for Alan Blueford!
Justice for Alan Blueford! Justice for Alan Blueford! Justice for Alan Blueford! Justice for Alan Blueford! Justice for Alan Blueford! Justice for Alan
When the audience, it's just me and you. I'm not looking for an audience. Okay? No, I'm standing right here. This is a very beautiful day. Very beautiful day. Very beautiful. I want to address what's going on in my community. How your officers just get away with murder, impunity. How you feel free.
All the other murders are lies.
You all, what did you feel about tonight? And I want to start with you, Cephus Johnson, Uncle Bobby. You've been through this process before. Police doing town halls, coming to churches, trying to do damage control. What you saw tonight, what do you think is going on here with the case of Alan Blueford?
I mean, tonight was totally a waste of time. To come here and this meeting only lasts 30 minutes, if it lasted that. It was a PR campaign for Chief Jordan and the Oakland Police Department. As far as I'm concerned, it was more of a setup. They staged this whole thing just to appease their community, realizing that it's really not going to do nothing but anger more people because no answers were really given that was truthful. Everything that occurred in there was just a complete stage.
What did you feel about not being able to ask the questions directly where they made the community write the questions down on the card?
I felt like I was totally kept quiet by the way it was set up. I mean, denied the right to speak to the issues that was really at hand. And then to hear them lie about, now it's the media talking about the son was in a shootout instead of a police officer going to the family and telling them, my question still remains, why not fire the officer that went to the family and told them that their son was in a shootout?
So there was an officer that said this?
Yeah.
Explain how this works.
Well, Adam and his wife wanted to know what happened. They then had an officer come to, did he come to their home? Either came to their home or called them in, one or the other. He went there at the police station and told them that their son was involved in a shootout with an officer. This is what they told the family. And so our question is, who was the officer that told the family that, and why is he not fired? It's in their procedures and policy, to be honest, not to tell no lies.
Because it wasn't a shootout.
It wasn't no shootout.
Wow, so the Oakland police have changed their story like like 3 or 4 times now.
Yeah, since the beginning. I mean, the gun was 30 feet, now it's 5 feet. You know, the lies are really stabbing the family bad.
What do you think is going on to the family where their son is being dragged through the mud? People are looking at backgrounds and all this because they did this with your nephew. What is the process? How does the family deal with that? They're burying Alan Blueford today, and then you still have this character assassination, both by the police and the press.
I mean, that's the most painful thing. It's one thing to lose a loved one to the police, but then when the police come and begin to demonize and character assassinate your loved one that had just been murdered, I mean, it's like a double slap. It's a stab. It is painful, and it does nothing but make the family angry in their mourning, in their grieving.
We appreciate that. What would you say to the family right now? Any course of action they should take?
Right now, to the family, they have to really begin to just stay in prayer, because this justice system is designed not for them to get any real justice. And in this true process that we see in Oakland, and the way it was staged today, is a complete setup to not allow them to get the real justice that they're entitled to. So, stay on your knees. Allow the community to support you and love you.
We see this all around because we see all the confusion simultaneously with the Trayvon Martin case.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, all this different stuff, witnesses changing their mind. It seems like it's a setup to say that the trial wasn't fair, therefore everything has to be dismissed.
Exactly. And that's what we're seeing here, I mean, to me, this whole thing was staged today, and of course, no real answers came out of it. It's good the family wasn't here, because it would have been real painful for them to sit and see something like this.
Uncle Bobby, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Peace.
How many minutes elapsed between the CPR administered by the police at the scene and Alan Blueford's arrival at the hospital? He was given CPR immediately by our officers. I don't have the exact times, but I know our officers did provide medical treatment to Mr. Blueford.
OPD's corrupt.
Did Alan point a gun at police?
No.
Yes.
No.
Why was the police so nervous that he shot himself? We're looking at that ourselves.
Hours before the coroner come pick the body up.
Elapsed. I can't read that.
He said there's medical people on duty. What's the medical people name? Did we get their names? Or is that confidential too?
I don't have the exact time, but it was not within 4 hours. 4 hours. He was actually given CPR by our responding officer, which is required by our policy. And he also he was transported within minutes to Highland Hospital.
Every time y'all guys have a homicide, the body is always left out there for hours. I've seen that a gang of times.
Where's the name of the medical people?
I can't remember.
A gang of times for hours.
In the church. You lying. You lying in the church, man. God.
How does the first statement made by the policeman's spokeswoman, John Watson, turns out to be 100% false information that Alan was in a gun battle?